Hi everyone, my name's Arsh Ellahi. It's Sunday, the 19th of June 2016. Hope you're well. Happy Father's Day for all the fathers listening out there. Hope you've had a great day. We've got some really exciting stuff to be speaking about tonight. We're going to be talking about a strategy called rent to rent, and hopefully you're either familiar with it. If not, hopefully by the end of the session tonight you will be. I've got online with me a very good friend and business partner to the name of Neil Ward. Neil, you online?
Yep, hi Arsh.
How you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yep, happy to be here.
Fantastic. Okay, so just so that we know that we've got everyone online and you can hear us nice and loudly and clearly, can you just say hi and just say hello for us? That'd be great. Okay, perfect. Everyone's saying that they can hear us nice, loudly and clearly. Great. Okay, so we've got a lot of content to get in over the next 60 minutes. So what we're going to do, we're going to go straight into it. We're going to keep the introductions brief and to the point. And if there are any other questions, what you need to do is put them into your little control panel and we'll try and answer as many of them as we can go along. So a little brief intro about who I am and what I do. My name's Arsh Ellahi. We're in a group of approximately 12 property companies with my brother and business partner Aki Ellahi. Together we're landlords and we're letting agents, and we've been letting property since 1973. We've got, I think now, approximately 650 tenants. Majority of them are on benefits, but when people say that it can't work, I tend to try and prove them wrong by giving them the statistic that we've got a 100% rent collection record and a very high 98% occupancy rate. So if you've never seen me, there I am. So I'm a Amazon bestseller of the book called Boom, Bust and Back Again. So I've done a fair bit in property. So I write articles in a magazine called YPN, which is Your Property Network, and here's one that I wrote in November 2014, actually about the topic of rent to rent. Is it worth the hype? You know, can you really make money from it? And if you do like it, if you'd like a copy of that, let me know, and I'll see if I can send it over to you. So that's enough about me. I'm now going to hand you over to Neil McCoy-Ward. He's going to be telling you a little bit about who he is, what he does, but more importantly, why he should be sitting here tonight telling you about what he's done. So over to you, Neil.
Thank you, Ash. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, firstly, for spending your time with us this evening. We really appreciate it, and I hope we can contribute to you and help you on your rent-to-rent journey, or at least find out if this strategy is right for you. Ash and I feel that it is right for most people out there, but there are some people it isn't right for. But at least you'll find out by the end of this webinar if this is right for you. So my background started in property back in 2005 when I bought my first investment property. I was watching Sarah Beanie, Property Ladder, like a lot of you probably did back in the day. And I thought, oh, these people don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're talking about. I'll have a go at this. And it was a really good experience. Bought a house not too far away from my parents' house, and first lesson I learned was that don't do the renovations yourself, because it takes about 5 times the amount of time and can cost you a lot more. Even though you think you're saving money, it's best to leave it to the experts. So there's lesson 1 for tonight. I'm basically an entrepreneur is the easiest way to describe it. When people say, what do you do? Like Arsh, it's an absolute nightmare. And someone asked me the other night, what do you do? And I had to go through everything, all my different, like Arsh, a dozen companies. The only difference between Arsh and I, Arsh specializes just in property. And in my opinion, there's not many people that know more in the property field than Arsh Ellahi. He really is the expert. Whereas my companies, some of them, I have 4 property companies, and then the rest of my companies are spread out across different fields, from consultancy, marketing, sales training. I have a professional speaking company. I have hospitality businesses, event businesses. So it is quite diverse in terms of what I do. And I specialize in the property market in rent-to-rent, deal sourcing, and I would say they're my 2 biggest ones. Did used to have a much larger portfolio. I've actually been selling, and one of Arsh's strategies is to sell and to pay down mortgages, and that's something I've been doing recently, to just sort of protect myself for the future, make my debts lower, and it's a good strategy to adopt once you get into that position. And again, I've been a landlord for a long time now. This is my 11th year actually, so I know a fair bit about property, let's just say. Should we go to the next slide, Ash? So our commitment to you, Arsh and I, we sat down and said, what is it that we want to give to people? What's our commitment? And we came up with all these different things, but when we actually drilled it right down, it came down to one thing, and I think it's the same for all of us, and that we're trying to just get to happiness, get a more happy and fulfilled life. So whether that's through family, relationships, for some people it's having more time in your life, where I was in that position where I would go to work all day, come home exhausted, go to sleep, repeat it every single day for a paycheck, and I just thought, you know what, I'm better than this, I deserve more than this. So I've been there, and I've really been there. I earned peanuts when I was doing this, and eventually I thought, similar to some of you online now, if you're online, there's probably a reason for it. In my mind, I said to myself, you know what, I'm supposed to be doing something more than this. And yes, I failed along the way. A couple of things I did didn't work out. But I think that's the whole point. You've got to keep trying and trying and failing your way to success. And if you look at any big entrepreneur, they'll say the same thing. They'll all say they failed their way to success. So that's the other thing, time. A lot of people, it's travel. One of my biggest things, I love to travel. I love to have that freedom that I can go wherever I want. I don't need to report to anyone at 9 o'clock on a Monday morning. I don't need to be told when I can take breaks and when I can have lunch and go home in the evening. Through this strategy, rent to rent alone, it's enabled me to do whatever I want with my life. Holidays, nice car, nice house. It really does open up everything that you could possibly want. And then, of course, the other one, and probably the most important, is health. I wasn't always the healthiest person. I think a lot of people know that about me. I used to be a lot bigger than I am now. And it got to that point where I sort of thought, you know what, this is not good. I need to do something right away. And I think it's the same for a lot of people. A lot of people say, yeah, but Neil, I'm in this job. I wake up early. I go to work. By the time I get home, I'm exhausted. I haven't got time to learn about healthy eating or juicing or how to exercise properly. I haven't got the money to hire a trainer. And it's completely true. It really is, because when I was in that position, it was exactly the same for me. I didn't have the energy, I didn't have the time, I didn't have the resources. So these, I think, are the 6 biggest things that we all either want, desire, and they'll help us to get a more happy and fulfilled life. And all of these things are possible through the rent-to-rent strategy. Next slide, Ash. So these are some really shocking statistics. It was actually Brian Tracy that I heard talking recently. He talked about this on a speech, and he said, according to the insurance industry, of 100 people that reach 65 years old, so this is retirement age in the UK, although even now, look what's happened, it's gone up again, only 1 will be rich, just 1%. 4 will be wealthy, 15 will have some money put aside. So that's not many people. And then 80% will be broke and living on benefits. And that's quite shocking. If you look at society now, and I don't know if we can use parents as an example. I don't want to offend anyone, or anyone in your family, that if you look at them, how many of them are on at that age now and relying on pensions or benefits and things like that? Because I know if I look at people that I know, there's a very high number that are in that category. There's not many people that you can look at and say they're rich or they're very wealthy, the 5%. But actually it is possible, because the last thing I would want is to reach 65 and have to worry about money or have to worry about my parents, because everyone gets old eventually, and there's a lot of costs involved with that. So we're going to show you really how to get into that 5%. Next slide, Arsh. Okay, so just stay tuned until the end, because I know sometimes people drop off, because we're going to actually do a promotion at the end. So next slide. Right, so let's the absolute basics, the fundamentals. What is rent to rent? So what's involved with rent to rent? Well, it's quite simple actually. Well, I say simple, the concept is simple, but understanding and learning how to do it properly is where it gets a little bit more difficult. But the absolute base concept is so easy. A landlord owns a property, you sit in the middle as the property manager, and then you rent that property on to tenants who live in the property. So it's very similar to a letting agent, except a letting agent might make £100 a month, whereas you might make £1,000 a month. I mean, the lowest rent to rent that I've seen, or is in our Arsh and I's group, is about £500 to £600. No one has got one lower than that. So it's very similar. Now, the reason I say it's similar to a letting agent is there's one fundamental difference. What we do on paper is show that we are the manager for the property with the landlord. So on paper we are just like the letting agent, but in reality what we're doing is we're renting that property from the landlord. Okay, cut into the chase, that's what we're doing. But because of all subletting and all these other rules, we don't want to get ourselves into any, we don't even want to get into a grey area. So we have this management agreement set up, which is similar, is almost identical to a letting agent, pretty much. And then that enables us then to rent that property by the room on behalf of the landlord and make a profit in the middle. So if you go to the next slide, Arsh, let's look at how that appears. Okay, next slide. Okay, so here's an example then. You've got a standard single let property and it's £850 per calendar month. Now, where Arsh and I operate in the Midlands, properties are less than this. They're more like 700, but I know that in other parts of the country they are more. They go up to sort of £1,000 or more in London. But let's just take a typical 850 example. So this is 4-bedroom house. Next slide. Okay, so upstairs we have 4 bedrooms. Downstairs we have the living room, dining room, kitchen, and the bathroom. So that's how it's currently set out and being marketed for rent on either, whatever portal, and that's what they're renting it for. Now, here's what we do. We then move in. We then take on that property and manage it, and we keep the 4 rooms upstairs, and we would rent those rooms out individually to professional tenants or whoever you choose for your market. And we convert the dining room into a bedroom as well, because when you have people sharing, you don't need a living room and a dining room. A living room is fine, and also it adds to your profit. And in certain places, such as central London, a lot of people, especially our students that do rent to rent, they don't even have a living room because it's so difficult to get rooms in London that people actually don't care if they have a living room. So what we now have here from this example is we've took a house that was £850 to rent and it was on the market, and we've now turned this into a £2,000 income per month. So next slide, Arsh. So here we go, 5 rooms at £400 each is £2,000 income, but then of course we've got to pay the landlord £850, and on that property you're going to have utility bills, council tax bills of around about £350 on average. Council tax, gas, electricity, water, TV license, broadband, and if you use a cleaner, which we recommend, you're going to have those bills of about £350. It's not going to be much lower than that. So when you take those into account, you're now up to £1,200 of outgoings. But what's left over is a profit of £800 per calendar month. And filling 5 rooms is not difficult in a house. It really isn't. If you look at how many people are looking for rooms right now, and this number goes up every single day, which is outside the scope for this webinar, but there's a lot of reasons why. But more and more people are looking for rooms every day now, and it's growing. The market is growing all the time. So here's the question: if you were making £800 for every single property, how many would you want? So next slide, Ash. And here's why rent to rent's great. Number one, there's no mortgage required at all. So you avoid all of that, especially for people that can't get mortgages. There's no solicitors required or mortgage surveyors. There's no deposit. You don't need to, get a huge lump sum of tens of thousands of pounds cash. It's very little capital required to get going. And what the initial capital will be needed for is to do a refurbishment and to buy some furniture. And when I say refurbishment, I don't mean new kitchens and bathrooms and all this. I just mean a lick of paint and maybe some new carpets, maybe some fire alarms or fire doors. But a lot of the time, you would have the landlord pay for that anyway. So it isn't very much capital. What you do spend on furniture is yours. You own that furniture anyway. Number 5, it's a lot easier to generate cash flow from properties, and it's very easy to grow into a business. For those of you who sort of talk to Arsh and I further about this, I'll explain how my rent-to-rent business is worth an absolute fortune. And I had a huge offer to buy it after it was only a year old, and I was amazed by it. I was very surprised myself, because businesses are valued based on the cash flow. So if you're making £500,000 cash flow in a year, a lot of people will value your business at 4 times cash flow. So that gives you an idea of what a business can be worth very quickly. And then number 6, you determine the terms of the agreements. A management agreement is not like an AST, which is a tenancy agreement. A management agreement is an agreement between you and the landlord. So what will often happen is the landlord will ask you to change certain things in it, and you might want to change certain things as well. So there is no set template. We have a set management agreement which we give you to use, but you can tailor that as you wish. So it really is an amazing flexible strategy. Next slide. Okay, so ROI stands for return on investment. Now, typically, if you speak to people who invest money and put money in the bank and things like that, and you were to tell them that you could get them a 50% return on investment, they would think you were crazy. If you told them you could get them 100%, again, they would think you were absolute nuts. But if you told them you could get a 360% investment, they just wouldn't believe you. It's so far outside of the reality of most people that they just can't even fathom this. But if we look at a typical rent-to-rent deal, I'll prove it to you now. So let's say you spend £2,000 on a light refurbishment, and you're only making a very small £600 per month. That's your profit. Let's say it's a 4-bedroom house. You're only making £600. Well, if you're making £7,200 net profit for the year, and you spent £2,000 on a refurbishment, and you divide the two together, that gives you a 360% return on investment. It's really as simple as that. Next slide, please. So over 3 years, because remember, you don't have to spend that $2,000 again each year after that. Over 3 years, you've just made a 1,000% return on investment, and you control the asset. Now, if you compare this to what most people are teaching in the property world, of going out and buying houses, nothing against it at all. I've done it myself. I've gone out and bought a lot of houses, but you're so limited to what you can do, because you have to put down 25, 50 grand each time. And it doesn't matter how rich you are, you're going to run out of money. I don't care what anyone says, you're going to run out of money eventually. And what you get in, 5%, 6%, 10%, 12% return per year, it's just not a lot of money when you compare it to what you can get through rent to rent. So a lot of people say, Neil, why have you stopped buying houses, and why have you done this? Because why would I buy houses when I can earn so much money through this strategy? It just doesn't make sense to me to go out and keep buying a lot of houses, because for most people it's the same thing. I'm interested in the cash flow. That's what I want. I want to be able to get that cash flow in and accumulate that wealth quite quickly. So next slide, Arsh. This is quite interesting. This is Nelson Rockefeller, which some of you might have heard of, Rockefeller family. Now, it was actually him that said, the secret to success is to own nothing, but control everything. And it's very similar with rent to rent. You don't have to own the asset to control it. And if you look at what he did, or even let's look at some of the businesses right now. Spare Room is a big website that I use, Arsh use, a lot of people use to find tenants for rooms. What does Spare Room actually own? They don't own any of the rooms. All they do is act as a middleman. They've created a web platform. Landlords go on and list their rooms. Tenants come on to find rooms. And Spare Room take a profit in the middle. That's it. They don't own anything. Arsh uses the example of Uber taxis. They don't own any of the taxis. All they do is they own the platform. And again, it's the same. If you look at all the businesses that are doing really well right now, none of them own anything. Facebook, Google, what they're doing, they're a service provider. And this is really the age where we're making all these huge fortunes in businesses by providing a service. You don't have to own everything. This is it's a very strange concept that a lot of people have got wrong, in my opinion, wanting to own all these, so many things, when actually what we want is we want the resources that we get from owning assets. So if you don't need to own the assets, you now minimize the risk, and you can earn a lot of money without a huge risk. So that's my opinion anyway. Next slide. So this is a training company that Arsh and I run. You can see there's a few photos there. These are different courses and speeches. And all of our speeches or courses, they always sell out. Even when we were doing huge seminars, I was just surprised. They still sold out. Next slide, Arsh. So what we've done now is we've actually reduced it down a little bit, so we don't do as big courses anymore. This is our secret group. It's community access. This is the rent-to-rent and the deal sourcing group that we have. And you can see there we've got 186 active members. So what you get here is you get ongoing support. There's daily posts from everybody, all the success stories, shared hints and tips from all the people who are really successful in rent-to-rent. A lot of the people you see out there who are doing really well in rent-to-rent were actually trained by Arsh and I. We've got some, I've lost count of actually how many properties we've got now, but there's, straight away. In fact, there's a guy there, Lukash, he's a friend of mine. He did every course under the sun, and when he actually came and trained with us, he's now gone off and been successful in the strategy. And you'll hear that story a lot as we go through this. A lot of people have tried rent-to-rent and just haven't been successful with it, and then they come and meet Arsh and I, and we don't have a sort of one-size-fits-all. What we do is we help people by looking at the area, and we analyze it in detail, and then we say, okay, that's why you've not been successful, because what you're doing here, this strategy doesn't work for your area. And it could be anything from tenant group. Some people are targeting students in a non-student area. It seems common sense, but there's a lot of things that people are doing that aren't correct. So this is a community group that we have for any of our students who are more than welcome to join this group. So next slide. Yeah, so easily over 200 properties under management within our group at the bare minimum. And that doesn't even include what Arsh and I have got as well. So I really do feel that we know what we're talking about in the marketplace. And you can see the figures there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Next slide, Arsh. Yeah. So this is what I did. It was actually a little bit more than 10,000 there. It was about 11,500, and that's what I did within 1 year. My first year within rent-to-rent. By the end of that first year, I had, goodness, I'm not sure how many properties, but I was earning about £11,500 net per month, and that was just in year one. It really is, once you get the strategy, it really is simple to just go through and do this. So next slide, please. Okay, so let's just talk then about the pros and cons of rent to rent, because I think this is the thing we need to go through, because again, it's not right for everyone, but it is right for the majority of people out there. So firstly then, we already mentioned this, there's no mortgage required. So if you have bad credit, or if you're new to this country and you have no credit rating, I would say this is the right strategy for you. You also don't need any lump sum deposits. Actually, there's nothing required. It's only a couple of £1,000, just in terms of what we talked about at the beginning. It's so easy to generate cash flow through doing this strategy. It's ridiculous. And you can also turn it into a business. I think a lot of people don't think about the exit strategy, but you've got to think, what am I going to do with this when I eventually decide that I'm gonna sell up? Because no one wants to be running a business like this well into their 70s or 80s. So you've got to think, what am I going to do in the future once I've built this monster, or whatever you want to build, whether you want to build 10 houses or 100 houses, you've got to think, what am I going to do with it in the end? Okay, and it's good if you haven't got any capital. So I know a lot of people that come on the courses are either fresh out of university, or they're in jobs, or they haven't got a lot of money and they want to get involved in property. And this is why I recommend rent to rent, because it is easy to get into, and as long as you follow the training properly, you will succeed at it. Next slide, Ash. Okay, also it's massive income. So again, most of our students, they don't earn less than £600, £700, £800 per house. So even if you had a minimum £500 per house, and you just had 10 houses, that's £5,000 a month. Now I don't know about you, but that's enough for most people to survive on, £5,000 a month. And it's not difficult to get up to 10 houses. A lot of people set a target of 1 house per month, which is completely realistic, because all you do is you'll renovate 1 house. It might take you a week or two, get the furniture in, paint it. You'll then spend a couple of weeks filling the rooms, and then you've now got that money back because you've now rented the rooms out. You've got some money back, and then you go out and you do your house number 2, do that for a month, house number 3, and you just build up very simply. You can also systemize this business, which is what I did. I systemized my business completely, hired a property manager, and I probably spend on average 1 to 2 hours a week on my rent-to-rent business. That's it, because my property manager is so excellent at what he does. And you know, you're not just going to find someone straight away who's excellent. You've got to actually train them. You've got to regularly train them. It might take a couple of months, it might take a few months, but eventually they'll be at such a high level where you don't need to train them anymore. They'll just go off and do it. And what you do is you incentivize them. So you incentivize them by giving them commissions on, if you fill this room, you get X amount. You pay them a commission for all the houses that are full. And if there's any empty rooms or voids, then they don't get paid for that house. So it's incentivized, and also it's that freedom for them as well. They've got their own self-employed job. Number 3, landlords absolutely love this service. It surprises me when people say, but why would a landlord give this property to me? They absolutely love the service, and you know, you give them really good rates. Right, so number 4. Okay, so a lot of people as well, they come to me and Arsh and they say that we want to save up money to buy houses. And Arsh and I say, that's great. If that's, you know, the strategy you want to do, fantastic. You know, you can use the rent-to-rent business that you're doing, you know, that lump sum that you're making every month. And you can just save that. So when you do want to buy a house, you've actually got that lump sum there, and you've got that money for a deposit. A lot of the time what will happen is your landlords will approach you and they will ask you if you want to buy their house, because why wouldn't they? Why would they just put it on the market when they've already got an agreement with you? They're going to offer it to you first, and of course you've already spent the money on the refurbishment, so it's a win-win for everybody. And lastly, it really is possible to build up to £10,000 of profit per month within your first 18 months, given the right area. Yes, I did it within 12 months, but I'm just making this simple to say 18 months. It is doable. And of course, some people say, well, I haven't got that huge lump sum at the start. You don't need that lump sum, because if you think about it, let's just say you had £4,000 put aside, and that's enough for 2 renovations. You're doing your renovation on month 1, so by the end of month 1, you've now got, let's say, £800 of cash flow coming in. So it only takes you 2.5 months to get that money back. Okay, let's say 3 months for argument's sake. You've now got that money back over those 3 months. But at the same time, at the end of the first month, you've started on your next house. So at the end of the second month, you've now got another 800 coming in. So you've now got 1,600 coming in each month. Well, it's only going to take you another month to get enough to do another house. And then it's the snowball effect. If anyone understands compound interest, it's very similar. The more houses that you take on, the more your cash flow goes up. And all you do is you keep investing the money back in for the first year. You don't want to take the money out during the first year. You just want to keep investing it back into the portfolio. Next slide, Arsh. Okay, so what are the cons? What are some pitfalls or things that might not work? So I've only actually had one problem since I've done rent to rent, well, 2. One of them was that I didn't get paid by a tenant, and I very quickly learned a lesson from that. And the lesson was that not to use these warranty insurance type policies, which is what I was told when I did a course years ago to use. Because what I found out was there's a reason that insurance companies offer these policies, and it's not usually in your favor. If you do get a payout, it's usually pennies. It's not worth it. So the first thing I learned from that was always get a guarantor for a tenant. If they haven't got a guarantor, get at least a month's deposit, if not 2 months deposit. So that's how I got around that one. So I said at the beginning, you fail your way to success. That was a learning curve for me, because I lost 2 months rent, which was probably about £800. And when you lose £800, doesn't matter how much money you've got, it's you learn a lesson from that. You don't want to lose that again. And that was simply a lady that I rented a room to who didn't pay, so we had to ask her to leave. And that was as simple as it was. The second problem is that a tenant could damage their room or abscond owing rent. But again, that's what the guarantor's for now. And we've only ever had a handful of people that haven't got a guarantor. And if they don't, again, they pay 2 months up front. It's that simple. And number 3, the landlord could become bankrupt. So people always ask me this question, oh, what if the landlord goes bankrupt? Well, at first I used to think, yeah, you've got a point there. What if they go bankrupt? Would we lose the house? But actually, it wouldn't work that way. And this is why. If you've got an AST, which is an assured short hold tenancy agreement, and you've issued that to a tenant that that's in your property that you're managing, if you issue that AST, by law, they've got 6 months. So let's just say that you did a renovation on the property and you issued out all the ASTs, you had 5 ASTs. What's going to happen now is, if the bank said, right, we're repossessing the property, they can't repossess it while those ASTs are in force anyway. So you've got 6 months worth of cash flow at £800 a month. If you spent £2,000 and you've got 6 months worth of £800, you're still going to make a profit. So that really, I would say, is the only risk that I can think of. I don't know if Arsh has got anything else to add, but in my opinion, those 3 are the only downsides of rent to rent. Arsh, do you want to go on to the next slide, and if you've got a point to add? Okay. And then really we have not filling the rooms. Yes, that could be a risk, but that's the whole point of what we train. What we teach is a strategy so that you know, by doing dummy ads, by doing all sorts of other things, if your strategy and your area is correct for you. Because if it's not right, you'll know through all the analysis straight away, and you wouldn't have taken that property on in the first place. And the second thing is the landlord, again, wanting the property back early. Again, it's not a risk because you've got a legally binding contract. and that is legally binding in any court of law in this country. So if they did try and take the property back, you could sue and get your money. But I've never had the problem. I don't know anyone else that's ever had the problem. So I wouldn't say it's a huge risk. Arsh, just before we go on to the next slide, have you got anything else to add?
I think you pretty much covered it all there so far.
Okay.
Just a couple of questions that someone's put in here. So Antonia's online. She goes, "Who bears the cost of the refurb?" And also, I think she's relatively new to rent to rent, and she's just asking what the abbreviation AST stands for.
Yeah, okay. Well, an AST is an assured short hold tenancy, and that's a just a basic tenancy agreement. If you were to rent a room or rent a house, you always sign what's known as an AST, and that's the tenancy agreement. And in terms of who does the refurb, you would always pay for that refurbishment. Now, what I do and what I've taught everybody else to do is to have the landlord bear some of the costs. And the reason for that is because you're putting that investment into his or her property. And what's that going to do? If you spend money on a house and make it look nicer, it's going to increase the value. So that's why I always sort of explain to the landlord in that way, if they can pay some of the costs. Now, things like painting and all the rest, that's not a huge cost. But when it comes to carpets, that does cost you a little bit of money. So I always ask the landlord if they'll contribute towards that. And I usually ask for between £500 and £700. And I've never had a single landlord say no to that, because I've showed them photos of other houses that I've done, and they were so impressed that they just said yes. And of course, when it comes to other things that are legal requirements, such as smoke alarms or fire doors, they have to pay that anyway. Whether they did the agreement with you or whether they went through a letting agent, they're going to have to bear that cost, so it makes no difference. So that's why we pass the cost on to them. Is there any more questions, Arsh?
Yeah, there are a couple of questions. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Amjad has put, what if the landlord wants to sell the property after 1 year? Have you ever come across that?
Yes, I have actually. I've got a 6-bed HMO, and it's a student. HMO is a house of a multiple occupant, and I have 6 students in there. And after the first year, the landlord said, "Oh, you know what? I think I want to sell the property." And I said, "Okay, but you realise that you would have to reimburse me as per the management agreement, because I've spent £5,000 on this property, which I hadn't. I spent less than that, but you know." You say this at the time, I need that money back. And he just said, right, okay. Well, he went and got a valuation, and then he said, yeah, okay, I think I'm gonna sell the property. And I said, okay, but you know that needs to be paid, and it needs to go into the agreement, and I need to speak to the agent, and he agreed to it. But then in the end, he decided he wanted to carry it on. So it happens a lot of times. Landlords sometimes say, I want to sell the property, I want to do this, I want to do that. And a lot of time they don't do it. But even if he did want to sell it, he agreed to reimburse me anyway for the money that I'd spent on it.
Well, there's a couple of things that you can also do in there. Is that in your agreements, if you like, you can actually put in there that you got the first option to purchase. So they have to offer you to the first option. And there's lots of things that you can if they are looking to sell. And just bear in mind that if they are selling, they've got to sell with you in situ as having the contract for however many years. So I wouldn't take that as too much, worry too much about that. Okay, so we've got quite a few questions coming through now. Neil. Have you got a couple of minutes to go through them?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so Harmesh has put, does making a new room or extra living space hinder any regulations? Well, no, it does. I'll quickly go through this one. No, it doesn't. Provided that you don't go over 6 and you're not in an Article 4 area, you're still under permitted development. One thing I would suggest is that you need to check with the local council guidelines as to what they will and will not permit. And that should all be on their website under the HMO regulations. So Howard has put, who collects and protects the tenant deposits? Now, Howard, just something, and this is a simple question. You would be, if you're the person taking on the property and you're the person that's going to be renting the rooms out, you would be liable for any deposits, because then you're basically saying to the landlord that they've got no liability on that property. Okay, so Anil put, on my first rent to rent, should I go for a shorter contract with the landlord? Now, Anil, that all comes down to you and your comfort zone. How comfortable are you that you know that you're going to make it a success? Now, for me personally, I like to take on a 7-year lease. I always go for a 7-year lease, because then it shows the landlord that I'm going to be committed. And more importantly, if the landlord's in it for the long term, he will no longer have any hassle, voids, or bad debt for the next 7 years. Now, Lawrence has come on and he goes, if you put multiple tenants into property that was previously single occupied, does that make that a HMO? I think we've just answered that one recently. Yes, it does become a HMO. Whether it's a licensed or unlicensed HMO depends on how many floors it is and how many tenants you got in there. But again, you would have to need to go back to the guidelines. These are all the kind of questions that we actually go through on the workshop. Keith has put, on your course, do you provide all the templates of the agreements? That's a great question, Keith, that we would need before setting up the contracts. Yes, that's actually one of the benefits of coming on the workshop, that you get all of our advert templates, you get all of our letter templates, you get all of our management contracts, and everything that we use on a day-to-day basis in this business. So Dan has asked a question directly to you, Neil. How old were you when you started?
I was 28, I think.
Okay. So 28 years old. So what do you say when you're starting out, haven't yet done to be able to show a landlord? So Annie has asked that question.
Yeah, again, these are things that we cover in the workshop actually, like objection handling. What we do is we do an objection handling session, and that was introduced by accident, funny enough, where someone said, look, I've already been on courses, I've done this, I've done that, but the fact is I keep going on leads with landlords, and then they'll ask me something, and each time it's a different thing, and I keep blowing it. So what do I do? So what me and Arsh then do is we do an objection handling session. It's quite funny because people come up and they can be as nasty as they want and sit there and pretend to be a landlord, and they throw some random objection at us, and Arsh and I every single time just blow the objection out the water, because we've been there. We've been in this situation with landlords day after day, week after week, that we've already gone through all the problems that you're going to go through. So we can tell you exactly what to say. It really is simple when you know what to say, because if you don't know what to say, what's going to happen is you're going to lose that house, and then you're going to go home and you're going to kick yourself and go, oh, I wish I'd have thought of this. And then you're going to go to the next lead, and you're going to get all the way through, and then they're going to throw an objection at the end, and it's going to be the same. So that's why we actually go through and do all the objections actually.
Okay. So we've got a few more questions, but what we'll do is we'll answer them closer towards the end, if that's okay, so we can keep moving forward with the content.
Yeah.
Yeah. So keep going, Neil.
Yeah, great. So, Arsh and I agree. The only real risk is that a landlord could lose the house if they went bankrupt. And yeah, against this, there really is no protection. There's nothing you can do. But it's similar, what's the bigger risk? Some people I know from the comments are in jobs. What's the bigger risk? Staying in a job and not earning your true potential, or that one of your landlords out of however many might go bankrupt. I mean, all I can do is speak from experience and say, not a single one of my landlords have gone bankrupt. Not a single one of them have tried to be underhand and take the property back, because this is experience, it's intuition. Each of you will know if someone that you're dealing with, if you like them or if you don't like them. And if you don't like someone, don't do a deal with them. If you get a feeling that they might try something with you, don't sign an agreement with them. But then again, my landlords have all been really nice, all friendly, they were very happy to go into an arrangement with me. So as long as you follow your gut instinct on people, in my opinion, it's a very low risk. Yeah. Next slide, Ash. Should we carry on?
Yeah.
So this is the next question that most of you are going to have. How can I get involved and how can I do this strategy? Well, it's really simple. You only need three things. One is the education. So how exactly to do the strategy effectively. And the best way to do anything, as you'll all know, I'm not teaching you anything you don't know here, is if you want to learn something new and you want to do really well at it, you learn from someone that's already done it. It's that simple. You don't go and ask someone that's never done it for advice. You go to someone who is an expert in it. That's how I've done all of my businesses. I didn't go into each business an expert. I would go and find who was very, very good in that field, and then I would have them teach me and mentor me and train me on how to do the business. So it's really that simple. Of course, the other part with it is having all the right templates, the legals, the contracts, and that's the difficult part. That's exactly why Arsh and I went through, I don't even know, years probably, of solicitors, legalities, contracts, so that we've done it all for you. Because the last thing you want is to have to go off and do all of that, because it is an absolute headache. So that's why we just give you all the templates, all the legal contracts, you get everything. So that's part one. Part two is to do the research, and again, we'll show you how to do the research properly. Find your goldmine area, analyze everything, because a lot of people that think they know what they're doing in rent to rent, they come for a session with me and I show them that actually they're probably doing about 10% of what they should be doing in terms of research. It's no surprise. Sometimes people say, oh, it just didn't work out. Well, I don't agree with that. I don't think a house can not work out. If you do the research properly, you do it effectively, and you follow the strategy, a house will always work out because you've already done the research. And then thirdly, you've just got to take huge action. Take massive action, go out there and do what you're supposed to do. The people that say, oh, this hasn't worked for me, if I sit down with them and I ask them honestly and I look them in the eye and say, did you actually follow it properly? Did you do everything we said? The answer every time is no, because no one can look me in the eye. It's one of these things with me, because I'm a very honest person. No one can look me in the eye and lie to me. It's a really funny thing. And that's what happens. People say, actually, Neil, no, I didn't do it all. And I say, okay, well, here's the solution. Go off and do it. They go off and do it, and then they get the success. And, lastly, have a mentor guide you. And that's what Arsh and I are here for. That's what we do. That's, that we're here to support you. We're here to get you to where you want to go. Next slide. Again, another question is, so if it's this easy, Neil, why don't more people do it? Well, it's one of those things. It's a lot of things are easy, but people just don't do them. I don't know why. I can't explain why people don't do the things that everyone knows to do. I can't tell you why people don't eat healthy fruit and vegetables all day when they know that's what they should eat. I'm the same. I don't sit there eating fruit and vegetables. I enjoy a pizza. That's my, that's like, the food I have on a weekend, on a Friday night. I know it's not good for me, but I enjoy eating it. I don't know why people don't do what we all know we should do. But here's some of the main excuses. I haven't got the finance to pay for training. Okay, well, it's not difficult to get finance. There's a lot of people that will help you in life if you just ask. People aren't willing to invest. A lot of people want everything for free, and that isn't the way life works. You have to invest in yourself. I know Arsh and I, we've spent hundreds of thousands on our education over the years, having the best mentors in different fields, and that's how you get good. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure. Some people, they're afraid of failing because they think, well, I don't want my friends or family to see that I failed. But then again, you've got it on the flip side where some people are afraid of success. Well, what if I'm successful and then people stop liking me? Okay, well, these are things that I can't help you with. They're something you've got to deal with yourself. Those two, you know, fear is an internal thing for yourself. You know, each person deals with it in their own way. And then lastly, people just don't understand how to do it. Well, that's what training is for. Next slide. Next thing is, here's why people fail at rent to rent. And this is just my opinion and what Arsh and I have seen. And we'll actually tell you what a lot of people won't tell you. You know, we're not the sort of people that say, come on a training course and then try and sell you loads more courses afterwards. When you come on a rent-to-rent training with us, that's it. A lot of people say it's like a franchise. It's like, for any of you who have ever looked into franchising, we give you everything. And we don't ask for any more money or I'll pay us more because we've given you this every month. No, you come on the course, you invest money, we invest our time and expertise into you. That's the relationship. And here's why most people fail. A lot of people say to go to letting agents. And Arsh and I, I'll talk from my own experience. I don't agree with that at all. I don't think people should go to letting agents to get these deals, and I could speak for an hour on why this is, but put it this way, it will never be in your best interest. And half the people that come on the course say, Neil, Arsh, help, I'm in trouble, I've got these houses on tenancy agreements, which I know I'm not allowed to do, I've got them on corporate let agreements, and yet I haven't got my own employees in the property, I'm letting it, I'm in trouble, I'm in legal trouble, what do I do? And that's why we help them. That's what we're here for. So we only teach direct-to-vendor strategies. And the reason for that is because it's effective. It will cost you a few pounds to do the strategies we teach you instead of paying an agent hundreds or £1,000. Next thing, it doesn't matter what anybody says to me, I 100% believe this. If you haven't had sales and negotiations training, and I don't mean weeks or months or years worth, I mean even a day with me is enough. If you haven't had training in sales and negotiations or experience in it, you are not going to be successful. It's absolutely paramount. If you don't know how to negotiate or, you know, actually get a deal with someone, you're not going to get anywhere because they will walk all over you. The other person will just ask for more and more and more and more, and in the end it's not worth doing the deal. And then the third thing is to really focus your marketing, and what I always teach is 4 really simple strategies that will get you ahead faster than anything else you could possibly do. Next slide, Arsh. I'm sure a lot of you have read this book by Robert Kiyosaki. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If you haven't read it, order a copy as soon as the webinar's over because it's fantastic and it really sort of explains the fundamentals between employees, self-employed, and the wealthy, which is the investors, the business owners. And this is what Robert Kiyosaki said. If you want to be a successful entrepreneur, there are 2 things that you must first master. Sales, marketing. I didn't really get this until later on. I thought, no, you know what, I'm fine, I can go off and do it. And once I got trained in sales and marketing, again, from the best of the best, my success in life just skyrocketed. I mean, I was trained in marketing by the best in California. I was trained in sales by the best in California and the UK. You know, experts in the fields who I interned under. And that's why I believe that I'm a successful trainer in this. This is why big corporate companies pay me as a consultant to train their people. And when Arsh actually asked me for the first time, will you come and train people in these strategies that you teach in the property courses? At first I thought, well, you know, I charge thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds per person per day for this stuff. I didn't want to do it initially, but then I thought, you know what, that's quite selfish not to do it for people that aren't in that, you know, corporate world. And that's why now anybody that comes on gets this and the same training as corporate CEOs, directors, marketing directors, sales directors. You get exactly the same training. Next slide. So this is the next course, and this will be the only one for the summer now, and probably the next one will be later in the year. And this is our advanced rent-to-rent training. So these are just a few of the things that we'll cover on the course. So it's your gold mine area, how to get in front of the landlords, in terms of as well the finish, how to do a really beautiful high-end finish, but for a low cost. A lot of people, when they see my houses, they think I spent a fortune, but I actually haven't. It's very, very low cost. All the legality and how to avoid the pitfalls, because that's what we want to avoid for you. And then how to actually run the numbers, calculate the profit, and then I'll show you how I got to 11,000 in 1 year. Next slide. And then the next day, which is the Sunday, we're going to go through a full day of negotiations training, and it's going to be tailored towards the property market, towards rent to rent. So I'll show you all the psychology, human behavioral psychology, sales psychology, buying patterns, and then I'm actually going to give you my complete system, which is the 12-step system. I'm going to give you that and teach you that in detail, how to do it. And I promise you, if you just follow that system, I can't say every single time you're going to get a deal, but you're going to at least times your success rate by 10. It's ridiculous. People that come and get this training, they especially salespeople, they say, I don't know how I didn't have this before. They go off and they're doing okay, and then from having this training, they go off and they become the top salespeople in their company. So I'm going to give you that as well. Again, how to overcome all the objections, and you're actually going to do this live with each other in the room. So don't worry, no one's going to be sat there watching you. You're just going to do it one-on-one with another person. You're going to swap, and you're going to just follow the system. And there's a reason why I do it this way, and it's quite simple. In terms of how we learn, we don't learn by reading a book or listening to an audio. That's called passive learning. Active learning is when we're actually sat in front of someone and we're doing something with another person. That's what human being is. It's that communication with another person. And when you're in that place, your learning just goes up so much, and it goes through the roof. And once you've learned it, you can't unlearn it. So that's why I structure it like that. Next slide. Yeah, again, a lot of people that come on the course have already done several rent-to-rent courses. And some of them might have 2 or 3 properties, but they still come on the course. And you've got to ask the question, why would someone come on our course if they've already done a course? And it's because we give you everything. We don't try and upsell and try and get you to do more stuff. You get everything, it's all there. And of course, it's the sales training as well, so you're going to get all of that. And we don't teach the letting agent strategies. Because a lot of people go out there and they try all these letting agent strategies, and then they say, it doesn't work. And we say, yeah, that's what we've been saying from the start. It doesn't work for everyone. And that's where the direct marketing comes in. Next slide. Okay, yeah, next. We can skip this, Ash. Here's something quite important. You're going to get all the systemization. So remember I said that I systemized my business entirely. Well, this is how I did it as well. Mind mapping. I created mind maps of marketing strategy, sourcing strategy, all the furnishing. So that model you can see on the right, that's a house. And it's divided into different bedrooms, lounge, kitchen, bathroom. And it shows you exactly what item you should have in each room and where to buy it from and how to get discounts and all of that. So you get that mind map as well. Because the last thing you want is to keep going over and over and over with your property manager, telling them where to buy these items from. Just give them this, send them off, and they'll go and do it all for you. Next slide. Arsh, do you want to talk about your keys to success, actually?
Okay, yeah, can do. So basically, when you come on the workshop, as well as getting all the documents that we've spoken about, so like you get the management contract, you get the mind maps, you get all the marketing documents, you get the templates, you get uh, one thing that I do is you've got to bear in mind that I've got over 650 odd tenants, is that you're going to require a few of the documents which it's taken me over 20 years to compile the list of documents that I use on a day-to-day basis. So it's stuff such as sales schedules, accountability, not software, spreadsheets, because I prefer using spreadsheets over software. Letters to inform tenants that you may go and visit, gas safety documents, guarantor documents, you name it, every document that you require on a day-to-day basis, even if you're not just doing rent to rent, but as a property business alone, that's what you'll be given as well. So back over to you, Neil.
Okay, so this is what we actually give you when you book with us this evening. You're going to get 1 day of rent-to-rent training. You're going to get a day of sales training, and you can see what that's usually charged at, especially US. You'll get a day of sales training. The management agreement, which is crucial, you need this. All the legal documents, all the templates, all the adverts, so that you know how to source. You'll get the keys to the Success USB. You're going to get a buffet meal each day. Membership to the secret group that we talked about. You'd also get a one-on-one call with me after the course, which I don't often do. So you'll actually get one of those. You'll get lifetime support as well. And, you know, it's priceless, really, all of this. If you were to, you know, pay for all this separate, you're paying over £6,000. So we'll show you, actually, you know, we said we're going to do a really good promotion. We'll tell you what that is in a moment. Next slide. Now, here's something quite interesting. If you look at other courses on the market, you'll see how much they cost for 1 day. 776, 617, 583. And look what we charge. 995 for both days. So this works out less than half the cost of other courses. Next slide, Arsh. Okay, so in terms of, this is one of the things that people often ask, what sort of investment or return on investment can I expect to get for my money? Well, if you think about it, if you made, well, let's look at this example. 995 is 6 weeks of cash flow for most people. That's all it is, 6 weeks of cash flow on your first house. So you make 100% of your money back after 6 weeks, per house that is. But, you know, if you imagine if you had 10 to 20 houses and you were making, let's say, 650 cash flow, that would be £6,500 a month, £78,000 a year. I don't think that's unreasonable. 10 houses is not a huge stretch. It really isn't. You can do that within 1 year. So if, I don't know, you know, I don't know all of your circumstances. We've got hundreds of people online. I don't know what your personal circumstances are. But what I can say is that if I was in a job, or even if I was doing something that I didn't enjoy, and I had the opportunity to make £78,000 a year, and I could outsource a lot of it, and it was going to cost me $995 for the full course for 2 days, I don't think that's a lot of money. I think that's a no-brainer. But, you know, that's my opinion. I'm biased, of course, but I think that's a really good deal. Next slide. Okay, so let's look at some testimonials then, because we don't want to just throw this at you without any backup. Look at all these people. Deborah, Michael, Ebony, Ben. These are all people that hadn't been successful and are now successful. Ash, let's just go through a couple of these slides, shall we? So we've got these people here. Who's next? Okay, Adam, Justin, Selig, Susie Bates. Everyone knows Susie Bates. Okay, big property person. Selig, most people will know him. You know, next slide, Ash. Okay, Leroy, successful. Nick, successful. Sean McGovern, yeah, okay. Most people know Sean, big developer and investor. Next slide. Okay, we've got Kevin. You know, all these people. In fact, the bottom left She is doing incredibly well. I can't even remember. It's like a dozen houses, I think. You know, she only came last June. A year, dozen houses. Got Rory O'Mara there. Most people will know. Next slide, Arsh. Okay, you know, all these people so successful. Next slide. Okay, and now we've got the Peter. Actually, how many courses? I don't know how many he went on before he came on ours. Became successful. Deborah as well. We've got, and then the infamous JC there. So JC, huge success. He's our biggest success actually. I've lost track of how many houses he's got in London now. JC operates in, yeah.
JC came on our workshop in February 2015, and by February 2016, just out of curiosity, for the guys that are online, how many properties you reckon he took on within 1 year? So if you wouldn't mind just filling in the box, that would be great. And then also, bottom right-hand side, lady called Deborah, how many properties you reckon she took on within 1 year? Okay, so JC actually took on 22 properties within a year. So it is possible, but more importantly, people say this can't happen in London. JC showed everyone that it can happen in London because he actually was in Croydon and he's doing it all over East London. Now,
Yeah.
Deborah again, believe it or not, sometimes you may come across that one landlord where you may not need to even speak to another landlord. Deborah came across one landlord who handed her 32 properties. So 32 properties all in one go. So that, do you see how you can actually make it work? Sometimes you don't need 35 individual landlords. You may just need that one portfolio landlord who's looking to offload their portfolio to a person and give them a guaranteed rent.
Yeah, and you know, it's the same for most people, you know. I actually met a portfolio landlord on my 4th house, and they gave me, it's either 7 or 8, I'm not sure exactly. They gave me 7 or 8 houses. You know, that sorted me. My first year, I was done. It really is that easy. And you'll actually find, if you think about most landlords, most people don't just have one house if you're a landlord. Most landlords will own several houses. And some landlords will own 100 houses if they're really big landlords. You know, it is that simple. Okay, so what we've stopped doing now, you can see from this image, we had 75 people on this course, and we had 50 people online because we couldn't fit any more in the room, actually streaming this, a live video stream. And if you can see in the background on that photo on the left, we even had Channel 4 filming this event because they were doing a feature on Arsh and, you know, how we'd been doing this and how we'd been achieving all of this. But now what we're doing, we're not doing this anymore, these huge events, because we found, it's not what we want to be doing. We don't, you know, we're not the sort of people that get you all up in the room, happy, clappy, massage each other and, you know, that sort of silliness. We're not that sort of people. Arsh and I, we're quite serious business people. We don't, you know, we're not there to babysit people. You know, when you have 75 people and you have a couple that are messing around, we're not interested in any of that. So what we now want is we only do 20 seats for each course, and that's it. And we're looking for, and you know, and it's not just a given. We don't just say to anybody can come on this course. We're looking for people that are professional, that are committed and dedicated, and actually want to go out and do this, because Arsh and I, you know, we've got successful businesses. We don't need to do this all the time, which is why we only run these courses infrequently. You know, we're already doing well from what we do, but you know, we feel that we need to actually share this as well, because there's a lot of people that actually need this. And you know, some of the trainers out there, they're not interested, and some of you will probably already know this, you'll have experienced this. They don't care about you. What they want is, they want to get you know, they want to get your money and things like that, and they just want to hardly give you anything in return. Whereas what we do is, we do care about people. We follow up, we make sure everyone's cared for, we make sure everyone gets what they want from the weekend. We have ongoing support. We have the groups, the Facebook group. You know, we want to see you be successful, because we don't want you to go out there and say, oh, we did this course with Neil and Arsh, and it was, you know, we didn't get anything from it, and then we never heard from them again, because that's not the kind of people we are. So we only have 20 seats now on the course. Should we go on to the next slide? Yeah, same with the negotiations. Again, 20 seats. So, okay, so we're up to 8 seats now of the 20, and that was as at the 15th of June, so it's a few days ago now, 4 days ago. So that's what we're up to now, 8 seats. We've got 12 seats left. Next slide, Arsh. And this is where it's going to be held. It's going to be at the Jury's Inn in Birmingham, and we've chosen this because we couldn't seem to satisfy everyone. The people that were in the north, they didn't want to come down to London. And then the people that were in London didn't want to come too far north. So what we've done is we've located our events now in Birmingham, because it's only an hour from London Euston, and it's not much further from the north either. And it's great, you know, it's very easy to drive to. Got the main motorways that go straight to Birmingham. And it's right next to the train station as well. It's only a 5-minute walk from the train station. So there shouldn't be any excuse, you know, everyone can get to this location. Next slide. Okay, so here's the offer that we're doing. You can attend both days for $995. You'll get the keys to success. You don't need to pay $197 for that. You're going to get that for free. Next slide, Arsh. And, okay, this is for tonight's webinar. Remember, we've got 12 seats. If you book on this evening, you can actually bring a guest for free. So you're going to get 2 seats for the price of 1. So for some of you who are worried about the money just a minute ago, we've just given you a life card here, really, because if there's someone else that might want to do this with you, like a friend or a business person or someone that you're in a network group with, you've now just half the price, because it's, you know, you can have someone else come with you, and you're only going to pay half the price. The next slide, Arsh. So here's how you book on. It's www.arshelahi.com/R2RMC. And again, if you do book on, you're going to get a one-on-one session with me after the course over the phone. And you'll also get access to the VIP Facebook group. So we're going to answer all your questions daily. Next slide. Okay, yeah, so we've covered most of this. I don't recommend anyone just do the 1 day, but we do have that in place. So if you do want to just do 1 day, you can attend for $595. But again, I don't recommend it. The only one that is, you know, I don't mind is people come on the negotiations and sales training. Sometimes we have people that aren't interested in doing rent to rent, but they do want to come on the sales training. So that's an option. Next slide. Ash, do you want to just take the next slide for 1 second?
Okay, so one thing that we can do is the workshop is actually, I think, just under a month away. For those that can't make a full payment of $995, you can actually break it down into 3 payments, £350, and all payments, all those would have to be taken over the phone as opposed to via the web, because we can't discount it via that, and we do take all credit cards. So really the only question left to do is, what have you decided to do? Because are you going to, remember at the start we talked about the people, are you going to be one of the 5% of the people who become wealthy and set themselves free, or are you going to be in the other group of 95%? Because we've told you what we do, we've told you how we do it. You know, what you tend to do from here on now is completely up to you. Just bear in mind, guys, that we're at the middle of 2016, and that has just been by the blink, just by a quick blink, and we've pretty much passed. Now you've got to ask yourself, check in with yourself now. How have you done for the first half of the year? Have you done good? Could you do better? Has it gone better than you expected, or has it gone worse than you expected? Could this be the boost that you require to kick you up so that you can then start making amends for the first half of the year? Can you make more money in the second half of the year? So these are things that you've got to take into consideration because your journey really starts now. And more importantly, if you've got a specific question that we haven't covered on tonight's course, why not you give myself or Neil a quick call on our personal numbers? So we've got our mobile numbers here. So that's Neil's mobile number. You've got Neil's website address as well as finding him on Facebook, Skype, and LinkedIn. And then you've got my mobile number there. Again, finding me on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. What I will do, someone's just put, can we go back to the page with the link? Okay, so the link is right at the top of the page. So it's arshilahi.com/R2RMC, which stands for Rent to Rent Masterclass. And whilst we're doing that, we'll go through some of the questions. So first question, Harmesh has asked, have you agreed a room rate that the jury's in? I'd like to say yes, but unfortunately not, Harmesh, just purely because when we booked rooms before, people would find them cheaper on places like not a spare room, late rooms, etc. So I would always suggest checking the web because it's cheaper to find them almost like on last minute deals and on some of the ticket out sites. But because
also, Ash, I was going to say, you're right in Birmingham city centre. You can throw a stone and you'll hit a dozen hotels. So, you don't need to necessarily be at the Jury's Inn.
It's very true. Like there's a couple of minutes away, you've got an Ibis, and you can pick up a room for as cheap as £29 a night. Over the road, you've got the Nova Hotel. You've got Premier a little bit down the road. So there's lots of options. We are actually on the main stretch in Broad Street, which we're 5 minutes away, 5 minutes walk from Birmingham New Street Station. So hopefully that helps. So I'm going to go through some of the questions. So Peter's put, what if the landlord dies? Well, generally, if a landlord dies, they will hopefully have a will, or they will have a estate that there would be, the deceased would have passed on to an estate. Now, in that will, naturally, someone would have inherited the property, but the one thing that you've got to take into consideration is that there is a tenancy agreement in place, which is exactly the same as a single let. Now, unfortunately, they can't just come in and say, well, sorry, okay, my father's passed away, or whoever's just passed away, now you have to up sticks and leave, because you can waive this agreement in place to say that whilst your father or whilst this person was alive, we did sign an agreement for 3, 5 or 7 years, and they have to honour that agreement because the agreement is with the property and the previous owner. So keep going through the questions. Let's keep going through. Do you have to do a refurb? Yes, we've already talked about refurbs. Let me have a quick look. There's some quite long questions. So one landlord I met has got a 3-storey house already let to 4 individuals, but he hasn't got the mandatory HMO license. Okay, he doesn't want the hassle anymore. And if I take it over, how do I get it licensed with the tenants still in there? Will the council effectively take a retrospective license? Okay. First thing to take into consideration is that 4 tenants in one property does not make it a licensed HMO unless you're in a selective license area. So that's just something. Every area is slightly different, and this is what we look at on the workshop. We look at where the areas are, and we tell you the legislation for that location. Because, with all due respect, at the moment we don't know where the area is. So keep moving on. So Beverly, hi Bev, good to have you on board. When taking on a rent to rent, what deposit do you agree to pay the landlord? Now the beauty with rent to rent, Bev, it is all down to subject to negotiation. You dictate the terms. Now in all the rents that I've got, and I've got 32 of them, I've only ever had to pay 1 deposit. On all of the rest, I've never paid a deposit. And I've only ever paid the rent in advance, 1 month's rent in advance. But then you may come across a landlord who will be insistent on a deposit. And so it will then come down to negotiation. Why does he require that deposit? Because taking into consideration that Neil's, not argument, but Neil's negotiation would be that in actual fact, I shouldn't give you a deposit because I want to use my money on the refurb on the property, which will then value the property.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you straight away what I would say. I would say, okay, I would say what Ash just said. Well, I've already put the money in, and if they say, well, well, on deposit, I would say, okay, so just correct me if I'm hearing this right. Then, are you saying that you want me to pay your deposit? Yes. Okay, that's fine. Are you sure though? So you're saying you want to pay for the full refurb, and then I just give you a deposit? Is right? Oh no. Well, yeah, that's how the conversation would go. So I'd probably use that line. I would say, well, if you're willing to pay for the refurbishment, then yeah, I'll happily give you a deposit. But this property is not in a perfect condition, and I'm going to go in and turn it around and invest a lot of money in. So for me to give you a deposit based on the fact that my money has already gone in to refurbish a property, that doesn't really make any sense to me. And landlords are logical people. It's not very often they're emotional people. They're very logical, and they have to be investors. They're going to see the logic in your argument, and they'll drop it.
Sorry, no. Okay, so someone's just put someone's put, can we put the contact details back up? I'll put your contact details. Okay, so right, okay, so Peter's put, okay, I'm booked. I am ready. Perfect, Peter. Good look for it, and he's put ready in big capital letters. So fantastic. So we're going quick. So looking forward to seeing you online. Okay. Now here's a question. Here's a great question. Dominic put, I've heard management contracts are the wrong thing to use. I've been told to use a commercial lease, which is the best contract to use, which is quite interesting. Neil, what's your take on that?
No, definitely not. No, I don't agree with it at all. I know a lot of people are saying this to use these commercial leases, but I remember, I think it was last year, Arsh, when we ran it through the solicitor, and they said straight away. I mean, we use expert property solicitors. There's three of them. They've been in the game for a long time, and they don't agree with it. So, Arsh and we're not experts in contract law. We'll say that straight away. We're not. This is why we hire experts. We pay for the best so they can advise us. Now, a management agreement has got everything you could possibly need in there. So the other thing, when you sign a commercial lease, so think of the key word here, commercial. A landlord is going to be scared off by that because the property they've got, they're not going to have a commercial mortgage on it. They're going to have a buy-to-let mortgage, or they might have an HMO mortgage, but I don't know. So if you start talking about commercial leases and they sign that, when I read a commercial lease before, it just didn't. I don't know. I just don't think it's the right one to use. But everyone can use whatever they want. It's up to you. But when if any problems come back, it's going to come back on you. Whereas Arsh and I are saying we've already tested these management agreements. We've got solicitors that have backed them up. So really, it's your decision at the end of the day.
Okay, right. So quickly go through some questions. Okay, here's a popular one, Neil. Does the landlord have to get permission from his lender?
Yeah, this is one that comes up a lot. So here's what I would say. In that management agreement, because look, we're not there to babysit landlords. That's not our job. If you look at what happens with a letting agent, and especially, I'll give you an example of Coventry where I live. I would say that the majority, probably 90% of the rental properties around the university, within a mile radius, are student houses. And a lot of them are done through the letting agencies on room-only basis. So whenever because I work with a lot of agents in other areas as well, and they're always doing properties on room-only basis. If they do that, that property is now an HMO because they're doing it by the room. How many of those landlords do you think go out and speak to their lender and make sure it's all right? I just don't think a lot of them do it. But here's what I would say. I always say to my landlords, look, this is what we're going to do. It's up to you to make sure you're covered correctly. I don't tell them this is what you need to do, go here, do that. I just say, look, it's up to you. It's on you to make sure it's all covered properly. And there's actually 3 points in the management agreement which all talk about how to do, what their responsibilities are. And at the end, they sign to say, I can't remember the exact wording, but it's similar to, I hereby, I hereby give notice that I understand that my property will be rented out on room only ASTs, not a room only AST. It's like room only, which signifies straight away it's not the whole house. ASTs. And there's also another clause that says, I have permission to rent this property to you on room only ASTs. That is now your job done. We're not there to babysit landlords and make sure they've got everything in place and done everything. Because a lot of the time, I'll be honest with you, some of them might not do it right. I don't know. All I can say is share my own experience and that of all the students that have gone through. We've never had a problem with any of this. So that's all I can say. Will it one day, maybe we'll have a problem with one house? Maybe. We might. But when you've got a lot of houses, let's say you've got, what number can we throw? Let's say you've got 50 houses. You're not going to be bothered by one if you lost it, and you even lost a couple thousand on it or something. It's not really going to affect you because you're just earning so much money that it makes no difference.
Okay, great. So going through. Select I want to sign it. It directs me to the payment page. Okay, so sorry, Harmesh goes. I went to the arshilahi.com R2RMC website. So I want to sign it. It directs me to the payment page. Do I not enter my details into a performer before payment? There's no option to select. Yeah, unfortunately, we don't accept American Express payment type. Unfortunately, so the Mastercard, Visa. Mastercard and Visa, and the reason I don't know why it is WorldPay that they don't accept American Express. So apologies for that. Harmesh, if you want, you can give me a call after, and we can go through that because the other option is bank transfer, which we can help with. So my mobile number is actually on the site right now.
Yeah, so, sorry again, about that. Yeah, I just remembered that we did change the payment processor because we were having. They take so many, yeah. But yeah, I just remember we did stop changing.
Keep going, Bill. Keep going. So, quick question. So, Ziggy's put, where can I read more of your testimonials? In actual fact, Ziggy, if you go on my website, arshilahi.com, we've got a whole section of testimonials of all the people who have been on and gone on real success. Now, believe it or not, Ziggy's part of something called the Elite Property Tribe, and Vicky Hughes was actually one part. Vicky Hughes actually came on the Rent to Rent workshop quite a while back, and you've seen the success that she's doing. She's done I think it's now 8 or 9 properties within the last 3 months. Okay, so Harriet has put, what sort of houses should I be looking for to begin with? What sort of property will give me the best return?
Yeah, that's like how long's a piece of string. That's why we spend 2 hours on the course going through that, because it's not easy to explain that. I mean, you've got so many variables. You've got licensed versus unlicensed versus area versus house type, tenant group, from students, professionals, workers, LHA, boutique. So it goes on, and then you've got to analyze what's in the area. You've got to do your comparisons, your market comparisons. You've got to check the different websites that we talk about. You've got to do the room. You can't answer that question without going into it for a couple of hours, unfortunately.
Okay, so here's an interesting question. So Laura's put, unfortunately she can't make the July course. When's the next event, please? It will generally be around the September. Where are we now? July. It won't be August. It'll be either. It will be the last one of the year, which may be September or October. One thing that you can do, Laura, is that we don't do this offer buy one get one free very often. So what you can do is, if you wanted to, you can reserve the workshop by paying the discounted price today, and then we can inform you, keep you consistently informed of when the next one is. We'll make sure that we definitely get you on the next one. Now, Devinder's come in and he goes, what percentage of people that have taken your course have at a minimum made their money back? Neil? Because I know that you did the statistic recently.
Yeah, it's very, you know what, it's very difficult because some people that, you know, I remember when I used to go to seminars, I was a seminar junkie myself years ago, and you see the same people at every seminar, and you think, how is it that you just go to seminar after seminar after seminar? And again, it's no different. We'll have people that come on this seminar who, you know, we'll tell them exactly what they need to do, and yet they'll say, oh, well, I'm doing this, and they'll come up with some random course that they're doing next week. Oh, and then the week after I'm doing Forex trading, and then I'm doing this, and I'm doing, and you know, those people, it doesn't matter how much time you spend with them, they're never gonna be successful at this strategy unless they sit down and they spend that time and do what we say they need to do. But in terms of who has been what the statistics are, I really don't know. But I mean, we take testimonials straight at the end of the course. So as you saw, and from those slides that you saw there, they were not fabricated or anything like that. We actually put on there those that were successful. So you saw there were some people on there that hadn't got a sticker over their picture saying success. There were some people who just, they don't join, you know, this, you've got all these facilities and yet some people don't join. You know, you've got a rent-to-rent group on Facebook, secret group. Some people, you know, they do the course, they don't even join the group. It baffles me, but I can't explain why. I don't know why people don't do what we all know people should do. So I don't know. I couldn't give you an accurate statistic. All I can say is those people who actually put the effort in and they pursue this day after day, week after week, month after month, it's only a matter of time until you become successful. So I would focus on it more from that point of view than the statistics, because some people, it doesn't matter what happens, they're not going to put the work in.
Okay, so I think we've pretty much covered all the costs. So we said approximately 50%, or but the one thing to take into consideration, Davinda, is that every person, every individual is an individual. All comes down to your drive and your ambition and your hunger. Now, the people who've been, you know, you could argue that JC has been extremely hungry because he's gone off and done 23 properties in a year. Now, someone else as equally has been as hungry, has got 8, and it also, there's lots of factors to take into consideration: location, competition. So it's not as straightforward saying, yeah, okay, it's straightforward, easy to do. Amjad put, when is the next one? So like I said, realistically, I think it will be September/October, but saying October will pretty much be a definite if it's not in September. If you do want to book on, the best thing to do is reserve your space for that place at the discounted rate, because it won't be that. If you go on my website, you'll see that the actual price of the course is actually 1997 plus VAT. So you'll see that it's actually a hell of a lot more than what we're offering today. So Tony Forrest has signed up, and he goes, I'm so excited. Well done, Tony. Look forward to seeing you. Arsh, Neil, I've signed up. Great. Okay, so Harriet has just put, says, what are the initial costs, Neil?
Could you just sort of go into a little bit more detail, Harriet, on what you want to know, like what initial costs you're thinking? Arsh, have you got another question just while Harriet's answering it?
Yeah, so someone called AC has put, what are you responsible for all costs, e.g. boiler breaking down?
Okay, that's a really good question. No, you're not responsible for that. Within the management agreement, it clearly states what we are responsible for as a rent-to-rent person, as a managing agent, and what the landlord is responsible for. And the boiler is one of those costs that the landlord is responsible for. So you've got to think smart. That landlord is going to be responsible for those costs anyway. It makes no difference. If they're with a letting agent, they're responsible. If they're going to self-manage, they're responsible. So why would we take on the cost for them for a boiler? It doesn't make any logical sense. So we don't take on things like the electrical system, the boiler system, the roof, you know, structural. There's only certain things that we take on, and really what we take on are the low risk items, such as you know, furniture. Well, it's ours anyway. carpet, the walls, the doors. There's not a great deal else really.
Okay, cool. So keep going. I think we've pretty much answered all the questions. Otherwise, we'll just be regurgitating all the stuff that we've done. Right, guys. So a couple of people have said. One person says that they want to reserve for October, but they want to pay in 3 payments. That is very doable. You have to pay your first payment this evening to secure your place of 350. So if you let us know if that's the option, you've got my mobile number there. So you've got my mobile number there, and you've also got Neil's mobile number. If there are any other questions, yes.
Did Harriet just come back at all with a question?
Sorry, I don't think she did.
Okay, that's fine.
I haven't seen it. But if there are any other questions, like I said, you can come back through to either Neil or I, and then let's see what we can do. But on that note, guys, I appreciate we've been on for slightly longer than 60 minutes. We've been on for 95 minutes, and hopefully that 95 minutes has been full of content for you, showing you exactly what you can do and why you can do this strategy. If you like the thought of it, again, the workshop is the place for you. But on that note, I'd like to thank you all very much for your time. I've actually enjoyed it. Neil, have you enjoyed it?
Always.
Okay, and then hopefully we look forward to seeing you in July. If not, we wish you all the very best and the success on your journey. And on this note, I'd like to thank you all and have a lovely evening. Good night and God bless.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot. Good night.